was actually in the program this 2.5 years when Nick was in there, and when he had first asked me to be on this panel, I always look at our experience that if I went through this, maybe if I can help somebody else, that we went through this for some reason. So that's why I agreed to do this. It's so hard to explain as a parent. Laura went into the program when she was 16 years old. And at that point, she had been in and out of the different psychiatric hospitals 6 times. And I had been told by psychiatrists that you have to accept that your daughter's schizophrenic and you need to go for therapy, because I says, I know she's got problems, but she's not schizophrenic. But anyway, she had problems. And we were at the point that the last time she went into the psychiatric hospital, I said to the social worker, I can't take her home. I can't take her back home. I said, I have 2 younger children. She had gotten DIFUS involved. My husband had to leave the house, and I was there with the other 2 kids, and things were it was just chaos, and we didn't know what to do. We were desperate. So she was going to be committed to Hagedorn, which is the psychiatric, like the Greystone of psychiatric institutions. And then the social worker told me about this program, Kids in North Jersey. So to me, it was a relief. It was like, oh, it's, then you go there for sometimes I think to myself, how did I get sucked into this? But although the experience is different for me as a parent, the mind control is the same, the brainwashing, and every time I would have a doubt, they would come back at me and say, do you want your child to die? Do you want your child to die? And they really had me scared. As Nick was saying for himself, that if we take her out of this program, she's not gonna make it. And we didn't know everything that was going on behind. What they do when they first prig you in there as a parent, they take your kid away for a couple of months, and you have this peace in your home that you haven't had for a long time. And it's only as you're there a couple of months you get to see more and more and more, and you see that none of the graduates are ever leaving. That was a total, you went in there thinking that there were hundreds of graduates all over the country that went through this program and they're doing good. And then you realize that there's really only 12 and none of them ever leave. And then not only that, they're back on first phase after they were your instructor. So it's like, it's definitely this whole, I think they grab you when you're desperate. You're desperate, and the other thing that I think of as a parent is when we went there, they were there like, okay, we'll take care of her. You don't have to make any more decisions. And I kind of got to a point after that I was relieved that somebody else was making the decisions for me. And then I'd see her, and in the beginning, she was dressed much nicer than she was in her craziness. And I'd think, well, she's doing good. She looks good, like everything's, but then like I said, I don't know. It's so hard to explain. I'm sure I feel I have a lot, because then in that program, we had host homes, but you don't become a host home until you're there for 6 months, and the kids start coming into your house and sleeping in your house, and we have to follow the rules. But when I'm trying to think, when I think of brainwashing, it was funny. I remember Laura first came home for the first time with a newcomer, and she would go back to the program and report that Daddy put on music while the kids were in the house, because you weren't allowed to have music or radio or television or anything on. And then we would get reported. Then we would come in the next day and we'd meet with the director, and he would tell us, what's the matter with you? Do you want your child to die? And you can't do this. And so we were like, so then we were afraid to question anything when the kids would come in the house. And if I did question it, even Michelle, my daughter, one time overheard me, and she went and reported me that I think my parents are going to take my sister out of the program. So then right away they had us in the office and they were confronting us. And I was afraid to, in fact, when I finally, 2.5 years, you know, this is a long time, I finally decided that I've got to get her out of there. But if we do it, we've got to trick them, because she'll get scared and not come with me, because I saw that happen with other kids. Another thing that, same thing with you, Nick, they had told us when somebody left the program, you couldn't talk to them. You couldn't associate with them. So one day I went into the bank, and one of the girls that had left the program was working as a teller. And I was thinking, they told me that this girl's on the street doing drugs, and she's working in this bank as a teller. I says, something's wrong, but I can't go and I can't say that to anybody, because they'll report me that I questioned this or that I talked to her. You know, that's what I mean about the mind control. The abuse that I had was not the same as the kids, but the mind control was, you know, the brainwashing. And what was I going to say? Oh, when I decided that I was going to take Laura out of the program, she had gotten a pass to go shopping. So I said, well, this is when we're going to do it. But I'm not going to tell her, and I'm not going to tell my daughters, and we're just, you know, so we went shopping and everything, and we got back home, and I said, Laura, you're not going back. And she thought I was tricking her. She thought it was a test that, you know, she didn't know how to react. But it was like, my point is that we had to, I couldn't even tell Michelle, because I was afraid that she would report me and then they wouldn't let Laura go home. I was so afraid. I said, if they don't let her go on this shopping pass, how am I going to get her out of there? You know, but the reason that I decided finally, I said, you know, God gave us free will. And if I says she should have the right to come out of there, and if she's going to screw up, she's going to screw up. But in there, the kids had no choice of anything. They just did what they had to do, and there was no, you know, they couldn't screw up because they'd have them on the floor restraining them and then there was no honesty. There was no honesty, right, in the program. It was like you had to make up things. You had to make up things to make your story worse than it was, because she was the same way. She did pot and she drank, but she had a mental illness and she needed medication. And that's really, you know, fortunately, after many, many years, I feel fortunate that we got through this and we have a relationship. And you know, I don't accredit the program for that, but I'm lucky. I guess my whole point in coming here would be that parents don't put kids in these programs. Maybe some of them do, because they can't stand the kids or don't like them. It's because I loved her so much and I was desperate to help her. So that's really what it was. That's all I have to say for now.
The story of Michelle, straight out of 1984.
Yeah.
But you reminded me, because they also told us how to dress. That was another thing. And if you deviated from that in any way, you would get in trouble. So Laura left, and then I got a chance to go to school, and then briefly, and I saw Laura, and she was wearing like this really nice necklace, but like necklaces were taboo, you know. So I'm like, oh, Laura's wearing a necklace. Oh, she's doing crack, you know. that was the, you know, it was kind of, oh, she's got those nice earrings. Oh, man, I feel really bad for her. You know, she's got those nice diamond earrings. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Michelle. I'm Joan's daughter, and Laura's my older sister. I'm very nervous. I only talk with a few people about my experience, and I think that's because it's confusing. It's hard to tell this story to new people that I meet. And I think the reason my younger sister, who isn't here, she was young when we were there, and it's hard for her to talk about it at all because partially she doesn't really remember a lot. Maybe she's blocked some things out. But, you know, she told me, no, I don't really talk to my boyfriend about this. He doesn't need to know about it, or it doesn't really come up. But I'm grateful that I met my husband when I did, which was only a few years after leaving, because I met him at a time where it was still very much affecting my everyday life. And so I could share with him what I was going through, and now we have this relationship where he knows this piece about me that maybe if I had met him later, it would have been harder for me to talk about. So anyway, thinking about those first days when my parents told me that Laura was going into this program, I remember how I was first brought there. And my mom said, oh, you know, they want to meet you. I was 13 at the time. And they want to meet you. They want you to come in. And I said, fine, because she said that it was, you know, it was a new type of place. It was very family oriented. They wanted the whole family involved. And if we wanted Laura to get better, then, you know, you need to be a part of this. And I was fine with that because honestly, I was sort of relieved that, like my mom said, I was a little relieved that she was out of the house because it was chaotic. There were times where I found her, not I found her, but I remember one time finding her in the bathroom because she was cutting herself. And so it was relief that she was gone, and I was fine with being a part of it. But I was also 13, getting ready for high school, and kind of wanted to half be involved. And so we went there, and they took me in a room, and they started asking me questions, and just kind of how I thought about life. And I was able to leave the room, and it wasn't until later that I realized that I guess, passed the test. I didn't need to be in the program. I could be a sibling and watch and be with my parents, but, and so that kind of, I didn't realize that until later on, that was even a possibility that I could be in the program until, like my mom said, they put this fear in us that if we did anything wrong, that's where I was going. I was going to be in there, and my view from the outside, it didn't look like fun. So I did everything that I could to be perfect, and that's I did everything that I could to be perfect so that I wouldn't end up there, and also that I was being told, just like my mom was, that if you did this, your sister is gonna die. And that's a really harsh thing to hear, and it's a really hard thing to process. And I believed it because the mind control that they had on me, I did everything that they told me to do because I didn't want that to happen, and I also didn't want to be in there. And I'm not really sure what I can share that is, I don't know, I'm starting to feel nervous and getting caught up in what I'm saying, so I'm just gonna stop there and just, yeah, because.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
The sibling wraps, could you describe those a little?
Yeah. So we would go twice a week to visit, and we would as a family, they called it open meeting, and we would have this meeting where we could share how we were feeling to Laura from across the room. We couldn't be near her. And then afterwards, everyone would break and go into their own meetings, and they had sibling wrap, where we would all sit in a room, and it was other siblings from, there as well, and we would have a topic. Share an experience where your sibling made you feel frustrated. And then we'd have to share an event. And a lot of times it got to the point where you did run out of things to say. And my majority of my time with my sister she was my older sister, and we were very close, and I had a lot of good times with her as well. So it got to a point where it wasn't very effective. It was going through the motions for me, and but I will say the one thing that was, I don't know, that's what they were about. That's what it was about. I'm gonna stop there. Sorry.
First of all, I want to say that I think the sibling story is such an important part of this, really, because so much is focused on the parents and the child that's there, but the siblings really are affected by this whole thing and the decision. My name is Sally Bacon, and one of the main reasons I'm here is just to say I'm Aaron Bacon's mother. I don't often get to say that anymore,